Alright, welcome to J-Rod Fishing. Today we're going to talk about Table Rock Lake. What happened last week? We had the Mo-Bass Nation State Championship at Table Rock Lake. We're going to get with it here in just a second. Alright, this morning we are at Lake of the Ozarks. It is the National Professional Fishing League. Day 3 is about to start. We have Nick Brown, I believe, leading the tournament, or Michael Stout. There's a whopper plopper bite going on, a little buzz baiting. There's a lot of cranking in the back of creeks, typical fall stuff. But overall, across the board, it is not what we expected. It's kind of what I expected because I know how tough fishing is on Lake of the Ozarks. And as we will get into how difficult it is on Table Rock also. But it is a great tournament. It is a tough time. It's a super tough time. It's still warm. It's still hot. We're waking up with 60 degrees. It's 75 in the afternoon. The water temps are still in the 60s. It's just not our good fall fishing. All our leaves are beautiful right now, but you can almost every single day see them get browner and browner. Usually by Halloween time, we are having an incredible bite at Lake of the Ozarks, and it's just not cool enough yet. I've seen this happen year after year, and apparently the plague has moved its way south to Table Rock. Table Rock Lake was wonderful last week. I was able to take off the entire week. I got down there on Monday, and I was also working on my computer, so I didn't get as much time on the water as I wanted, but I was still in beautiful, beautiful Table Rock. Now, before we get into the fishing portion, I don't want to get into all of the bad construction and the bad that goes into creating new things like theme parks, condos, docks. The development that's going on at Table Rock is crazy. It's good or bad. I'm more than willing to share the lake with anyone. I live at Lake of the Ozarks. It's pretty much a recreational lake. And I guess that I did expect it to happen to Table Rock. I didn't quite expect it to happen as big as it's happening. I think the water clarity is not as good as it used to be. That's part of there's no flow going on right now, and that's didn't have a lot to do with the construction, but the overall, it's just not as clear as it used to be. And right now there's no flow, and you would think that it would be clearer than it is. It's still beautiful. It used to be my favorite lake. I'm not quite sure if I can say that now. But I've been on a lot of good lakes, so I'm comparing Table Rock to many, many good lakes. But one of the reasons that I liked it is I could go into a creek and kind of get lost. Kind of just have that forest feeling, that creek, the waterfalls, the nature. And now when I get into a creek, I'm listening to people talk on their docks and up in their condos like at Lake of the Ozarks, which it's just different. That's the main thing. Table Rock is different now. The fishing was, I would say, very, very tough. If you wanted to go have fun, you could have a lot of fun. So if you want to catch 14-inch Kentuckys, It is so much fun. They are fat. They are biting topwaters. They're biting Damiki rigs. Probably my best bait throughout the week for Kentucky's was definitely a drop shot. On the last day of the tournament, my co-angler and I caught several on a jig head minnow. Everybody wants to coin these terms, Damiki rig, shaking the minnow, etc. I was using a 1/8 ounce crappie head, a regular old jig head with a little bit bigger hook than I use for crappie. Putting a Super Fluke Junior on it. Also, there was it's called a Hickey Shad or something like that I bought at Lake Norfolk. And it was kind of I don't know, I see these Japanese baits come out now that have like the hollow belly or the slot to make the jig do different things, and I tried it. It worked good too. For some reason they would nip at that bait a lot, and it's also due to the conditions at the time. So if you were out on points fishing for these Kentuckys or just random underneath bait balls, it's almost like the points and contours don't even matter anymore. If they want to get in brush, the brush is usually around the points. So, we're so used to dialing into contours and points and things like that, and I'm not even sure that it matters anymore. The number one factor is shad. You had to be around bait, and that bait might be all the way out in the middle of the lake, and it might be on a point. We just typically we gravitate towards the points because usually that's where, when they're really, really feeding, that they like to ambush that bait as it comes over the top. And a lot of the feeding depth was between 20 and 25 feet, which is very typical of Table Rock throughout the summer. And a lot of the bigger fish were actually deeper in that 30, 35 to 40 foot range. So if you got bit in that 35 foot, it was usually a keeper. If you got bit in that 20 to 25, you were usually going through a lot of non-keepers. So that was the frustrating part. We'll go back to, so I was off all week long. The first 2 days I stayed from the dam to, you could say, all the way up Long Creek and Cricket Creek. The wind blew very good on Monday and especially good on Tuesday when we had like 30 mile, 40, 50 mile an hour gust. It was pretty rough and crazy out there. But when I got way up the creeks, it was very fishable. And the only keepers I caught were on a spinnerbait, typical. I had to find wood, and I had to be either a laydown or a brush pile. And the more depth you had to it, the better. The water is pretty low on Table Rock. I'm not going to say the exact. I think it's 707. Normal pool's 915. So, you can fact check my numbers there, but it's fishing like it's low with absolutely zero flow out of the dam. So if you found wood anywhere, main lake, creeks, anywhere, there was usually a fish on it. It was very isolated because there's just not a lot of wood in the water. And for some reason, I just could not get a bite going out of the vertical timber, which is usually where they go. I don't know if I just completely missed it. If I was throwing the wrong type of baits, I would throw topwater over the top of it. I would throw a Texas rig worm through the middle of it, jig, a spinnerbait by it, even used jerk baits and crankbaits and square bills banging off the wood. I just could not get that standing timber bite going. And that really hurt me because I kind of That's one of my go-tos in the fall. So I had to really scramble to figure out what they wanted to do. I really think the most consistent bite right now is off the points and out in the open water. But I'm a creek guy. I like flipping docks. I like flipping stumps and brush and targets. And when I would do that, my best bait ended up being a tube. My best bite was on Wednesday before the tournament. I had a really nice fish that ended up wrapping me into this weird stump and a hole in it, and I lost it. But it was a really good fish. That fish was on the Beaver. I threw jigs a lot. They really preferred the plastics over the jigs. That's pretty typical whenever the water's that hot and we're getting into the end of the summer, early fall. They get keyed in on the bait fish, and so a tube and a Beaver that glides typically is better for me. I did throw a worm quite a bit. I ended up weighing in a couple keepers on a Texas rig worm, but that's when I had really went through a lot of shorts on the tube and the Beaver style bait. There was just a lot of fish chasing shad. Shad are not everywhere on Table Rock like they are at Lake of the Ozarks. You have to look for them and find them somewhere in the back of Big Indian, somewhere in the not as many, but it seemed like Big Indian had more shad than Little Indian. Long Creek had more shad than Cricket Creek, but they both had enough shad to hold fish. On the main lake, it seemed like the fish were trying to stay out. The shad were really roaming, and I thought with all the wind that we had before the tournament started, they would push into the pockets, and they really didn't. Now, every once in a while, you get like to a campground dock or a courtesy dock that had big gizzards behind it and a lot of activity around those docks, but I could not get bit around those docks, and a lot of times there's no fishing around those docks, which brings me to another thing. How in the world did we end up with so many commercial docks on Table Rock? I remember fishing specifically certain docks that were not considered commercial, but it seems like a lot of them have those red signs now that they're commercial and you cannot fish around them, which is bad for me because I love docks. But all in all, there are plenty of other docks to fish. There's more individual docks now than I've ever seen before. Like I said, it's a different Table Rock. On Thursday, we went way up the James River. So we fished from, I don't know if they call it Smallmouth Cove or above there. We tried several pockets. I think that was my best practice day, even though we didn't boat a lot of keepers. We ended up focusing on wood. We didn't make it to Flat Creek or anything. We did go past the Cape Fair Marina. There's a great bite up there. I just think that you would have to go through so many shorts to get a keeper, or just get lucky and run into a few. Throughout the week, I did a lot of looking, not a lot of fishing throughout the week, but it seemed like if you caught a keeper or two in a creek, you were doing good. If you caught a keeper or two on a point or main lake, you were doing good, and you weren't going to catch any more keepers. You could just kind of grind it out and start catching shorts, and getting that keeper bite was very hard. So it was just a weird, funky fall transition bite. But I would say this, the tournament did not go well for me as far as results, way down in the pack. But what's weird is I was all bummed out about it, and then I was just thinking, yesterday of how close I was if the 14 inchers would have measured, I would have made the state team or I would have damn near won the tournament. If if a lot of things have went right, then I would have definitely made the nationals. So what do you do when you're catching 14-inch spots that are measuring 14 and a half? Our decision was to just stick it out. There was a lot of boats on the water on Saturday and Sunday. Lots of big tournaments going on. And if you ran around, you might not get to fish where you're running to. So we found good points, and if we were on it, we stayed there. We grinded it out. And so I think that was the best choice. It seemed like all of a sudden, they would get active and start pushing shad around and catch 2 or 3, and then maybe a keeper, and then that would be it. And then you would fish for another hour or so, and then they would fire up again, and then you might go 2 hours. It's just very, very slow. They would kind of go in flurries throughout the day, and you'd have to make that decision. There's a lot of variables on Table Rock, and they start to mess with your mind. Do I need to run up the White? Do I need to run up Big Indian? Do I need to go to Long Creek? Do I want to go up to James? Do I need to go Ants Creek? And then you can find yourself scrambling so much that you went through $200 in gas and not had very good results. So if you knew the answer to that question, I guess you'd do well in every tournament. But if I was going back tomorrow, I would still have everything rigged up. A square bill, a spinnerbait, maybe a chatterbait, jigs, finesse jigs more than the big jigs. Typical Table Rock stuff. I would have 3 or 4 different jig head minnows ready. So something small with no action, something like a 2.8 Kitech with action, maybe even a grub. I would definitely have a drop shot ready to go. The Morning Dawn was the best color, big surprise there. There was, with the drop shot, it seemed like if they didn't get it on the fall or right after it hit the bottom, you were probably going to have a hard time getting them to bite. If you were looking at them with live scope and they're on the bottom looking at it, the more you moved it, the less bites you got. There's a key nugget there. When it gets so much pressure, don't move the bait a lot. And then if they don't bite it, just reel it in and throw it again, because they really react as it hits the water. They're looking up at bait. They're really wanting to come up and eat it. When they're super active, they'll have it on the fall before it even hits the bottom. So that's a super that's just something that you need to think about. I did not experiment with spoons. I could see where a spoon bite would be really good, but it was just so crazy with the bite. I don't know if they would react to it or not. I'm sure some really good spoon fishermen probably could do well right now. I just don't know how many keepers you would catch. So the bite's only going to get better there. The bite's only going to get better here at Lake of the Ozarks. I would say that as far as fun right now, if you want to topwater fish and do things like that, I would stay at Lake of the Ozarks. But we need some weather. We're starting to get some clouds finally rolling in. We need some weather. We need some cooler nights. We need to get this fall, winter, whatever, to kick into gear, and then we're going to have some good fishing for a few weeks, and then I'm sure it's going to turn cold as hell. So enjoy it while it lasts, really, good or bad, because we're we're on the verge of some serious winter weather, I'm afraid. So, anyway, that's Table Rock. I hope that everyone stays safe out there. I hope that everyone that made the Bass Nation Nationals, congratulations to you. Everyone that made it would be the Central Qualifiers, congratulations to you. Unfortunately for you, everyone else that wants to go can just pay their way, which is a weird Bass Nation rule now, where, you don't even have to qualify. You can just pay your way and go. So when the schedule comes out, I'm going to look at it. Maybe I'll pay my way to go, because I'm not good enough to make it during these state tournaments. Maybe I'll just pay and go, which I doubt that I will. I don't like that. I don't like that rule. I don't like that you can do that. I think you need to qualify, and I think you need to make the nation a more prestigious tournament, but it's turning into a glorified open. So that's that. It is what it is. Fishing. Remember, fishing's supposed to be fun, and it is. Table Rock was beautiful. It was fun, but when we can try to combine the tournament aspect of it, sometimes our results don't tend to work out for us, and that's what happened here. So anyway, we will talk to you later. I hope everyone has a great Halloween and gets out in the deer woods. Hopefully you can enjoy some nature. I'm going to go out and do some forest bathing. So check that out. We'll see you later.